YouTube, what is good, and welcome to the video. I hope wherever and whenever this video finds you, you're doing well. And welcome to my morning commute as well. For those of you who don't know, I am in the car right now. I have like a whole car camera set up now because I have an hour commute to and from work. So I wanted to still be able to try to get some content out and record these videos. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to bring up lagging body parts using me as a case study for this, because Lord knows I need to bring up my quads. For those of you who don't know or might be new here, my name is David Martin. I'm an online coach, podcast host, and fitness content creator, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Health Promotion, Nutrition, and Exercise Science. So we are going to be taking some of the training principles and strategies that I've been using to bring up my quads since I competed last November. And I'll throw up some stage shots here. As you can see, my lagging muscle group, just due to my height and genetics, are my quads. It's definitely something that I need to bring up if I want to continue to progress in bodybuilding. And for just about 10 months now, I've been doing that. In this video, we will be breaking down the nutrition strategies, training programs, and analyzing specific training technique from my footage from all of my leg day sessions to give you a good idea of my plan and the things that you can take away from my plan and integrate into your approach. But before we get too far into it, I'd really appreciate if you help me grow this channel. If you liked the video, click that like button. If you learned a little something, maybe stick around, subscribe, and then ring that notification bell if you don't want to miss a video. Now that we have all that fun stuff out of the way, let's talk about some of the big pillars that you need to focus on when you're working to bring up a lagging muscle group. First and foremost, your nutrition has got to be on point. An analogy that Dr. Mike actually said in a video once that's really stuck with me is when you're building a skyscraper, you have that team of workers. You can think of that team of workers as your training stimulus, so the work that you're actively doing in the gym. You need the actual resources, the tools, the building supplies, the equipment to actually build the building. And in the cases of muscle growth, that's going to be your nutrition. You need to be in a calorie surplus. You have to make sure that you have adequate protein to fuel muscle protein synthesis. So your nutrition has to be on lock first and foremost. Make sure you're tracking a baseline. And then once you've established your maintenance baseline where your weight isn't moving much, you can begin to add 250 to 500 calories to get in a surplus. Make sure you're consuming at least 1 gram per pound of protein and you're going to be squared away. So I've been a training nerd for like 10 years now. And I've spent a lot of time into advanced program design and understanding what's going to really drive hypertrophy. And to me, frequency is the king. The more times we can drive a high quality stimulus to a muscle group and still recover, the better. So after I competed and I got into an off season, I regained some of the weight, let's say 1 to 2 months after the competition. I got into a 6-day training split that was 3 days of upper body and 3 days of lower body training. Now keep in mind, the upper body was really just at maintenance volume. Those sessions were really quick, not a ton of sets and reps, just kind of working to drive nominal progress, but I'm focusing on my legs. And when you want to prioritize a muscle group, you need to free up your recovery resources as much as possible. Big key for me was biasing most of my training volume towards my legs. And I'll go ahead and throw up the template that I used with the RP Hypertrophy app. I design all my programs on the RP Hypertrophy app and use that app to track my training. I don't always go by the recommendations that they provide with their sets and reps, but I think most of the time the app is good. I made a video reviewing the app and I'm a big fan of it overall. So I was using the RP Hypertrophy app for my programs. Ideally, we don't want a ton of overlapping soreness, but inevitably it will happen with a split like this. So tweaking the exercise selection to what individually works best for you is going to be the key there. And really, guys, I wish I had a cheat code for you, but it is just going to be trial and error at the end of the day. Keep in mind, guys, I was only running that 3-day upper and 3-day lower program while I was in a calorie surplus. The times when I did come back to maintenance, whether it was for a deload or just to take some time at diet maintenance because I got tired of eating so much, I went to a push-pull legs where I'm just kind of hitting all body parts evenly. I think the surplus was key for being able to recover from this pretty tough training program. Will this be for everybody? No. Some people do like lower frequency, higher intensity, or just like more challenging sessions. And that's okay. You can still make great progress with your legs using a program like that. However, with this higher frequency leg training program, I was keeping a close eye on my relative intensity, which is just the nerdy way of saying I was leaving a few reps in the tank at the beginning of this program, and throughout the duration of this program, I was training closer to failure. So starting at 3 reps in reserve and progressing my way to 0 reps in reserve towards that final week of the program, of the mesocycle. And that's always been a great framework for me. But once again, some people don't like training like that, and that's okay. When I got feedback from the judges from my first bodybuilding show, a thing that really stuck with me is that the show promoter and head judge, who's also a pretty accomplished bodybuilder in his own right, he said, get comfortable in the deep squat position to grow those quads. And I took that personally. Of course, I already knew that. It wasn't telling me anything that was brand new to me, but your training technique and making sure you're executing these movements to the best of your abilities is what's going to get you the most bang for your buck and help you get the most out of your time in the gym. And I want to break down the technique cues that I use and just show you all what I consider to be good technique so that you can take some notes from my approach and once again apply it to your situation. With everything fitness, the people that are telling you this is the only way or you need to do it this way to see results are typically full of shit, and they're just trying to sell you on their program. I'll say, take what you can from my approach, try it out, see if it works for you, see if you get any positive takeaways, and then just disregard the parts that you might not click with or might not be applicable to you. So we will get into the voiceover training footage breakdown of my leg days. Once again, appreciate you guys for checking out the video. Let's get into it. And welcome to the training breakdown portion of this video. Appreciate you guys for sticking in thus far. Let's get to the fun stuff. You'll see that I start off my leg day with some hip abductions rather. And I have this Cybex machine at one of the gyms that I go to. It's not the best in terms of range of motion, so I alter that movement pattern by standing up and then holding onto the machine itself that houses the weight stack. I'm a big fan of hitting glute medius before my main movements because this is an area that I've injured in the past and I really want to be careful to warm it up. Plus, it just feels great to have my glutes engaged from this movement before I go into a main movement. So pretty standard, being a bad girl, and we'll move it on, balance it out with some good girls. Now, hip adduction really does directly help with my goal of building my quads. So this one's kind of a two-piece here. Also helps to prime my main movements. My hips are feeling warm after I do these. I have a better range of motion, but I really do need to add musculature onto my inner thigh, if you know what I mean. And this is a great one. So I set the range of motion pretty large and wide here. Not to the point where I feel like anything's gonna tear or I feel like unstable or uncomfortable, but it is a very deep stretch as I'm in that extended portion of the range of motion. Loading it moderately heavy, I could go with a lower range of motion and load the shit out of it, but I feel like I just get more out of a larger range of motion with more moderate weights. But definitely play around with both. Maybe you have one day where you do a smaller range of motion with repping out the stack, the other you do a larger range of motion with less weight. We move it all along. Shout out to the late great John Meadows for putting me on to hamstrings before your squat or main movement pattern. I'm rocking the Cybex hack squat, I'm rocking the Cybex seated hamstring curl, and I have to do a good bit of adjustment to make this machine works. The Cybex machines at this gym are not great, I'll say. So what I do is put a ab mat on my back, and then I also kind of get in one leg at a time so I can pin that knee support pad down as far as possible to get a deep stretch. And from here, you've all seen me probably do some type of hamstring curl. You know, I control the eccentric on the way out. I focus on kicking my heels to my butt. And really, I like doing hamstrings before a squat or a quad movement pattern because it can help to get some blood flow through the ligaments and areas surrounding your knees. So my knees feel great when I'm moving on to those heavier movement patterns. And I feel like if I'm super fatigued after one of my main movements, my hamstring training will suffer. But if I do the hamstring training first, there's really not as much of a fatigue overlap component. So I can, and with that being said, I can go pretty hard on hamstring curls without having my next movement pattern suffer. So try hamstring curls before your squats or leg presses. I think it's gonna pay off for people in a big way here. And then we're moving right along. I have a leg extension. And I do this so I can pre-exhaust my quads before I hit the main movements. So here, once again, not the greatest machine, but I'm doing everything that I can to get a deep stretch on my quads and then just driving out. I think about kicking the tops of my feet up to the ceiling and squeezing the quads hard at the top and just lowering that range of motion in a slow and controlled way. Really focusing on moderately high rep ranges. I'm thinking 10 to 20, typically around 15 reps here. And I like doing this because not only does it help me kind of prime those quads before I go into a heavy compound, but it helps me to pre-exhaust my quads so I don't have to go quite as heavy on the compound movements. And that's important so I can manage fatigue throughout the week. Here we are moving into my first set of leg presses. So you'll see I have the whole setup to try to get a deep range of motion. And once again, guys, this Cybex leg press at the gym that I'm training at, it's not the best range of motion. The machine unfortunately cuts you off from going as deep as I think you can. And that's why I have the seat lean back as far as possible. I have the mats under my back so I can get more range of motion while reducing the risk of my lower back rounding. Sometimes if you try to go too deep without a mat behind your lower back, you could risk tweaking your lower back from that kind of spinal movement if you're going super deep. So that's what the mat is for, is greater range of motion and a little bit of support as I'm taking these nice and deep. But as you'll see throughout most of my training, large range of motion, because training the muscle in the stretched part of the range of motion is the most hypertrophic. At least that's the current consensus. So that's what we're rocking with now. And we are taking these pretty close to failure. I'm trying to push as hard as I can within my proximity to failure. You know, I'm not going absolutely all the way to failing reps, but I'm leaving a few reps in the tank, making sure that I'm pushing to the point where the rep speed slows down, as that's a good indicator that you're approaching failure while still maintaining good form. And I also got another angle of this leg press, just so you can kind of see how my knee flexion looks, how deep I'm going, kind of the way that I'm controlling the weight. Of course, I could do more load and go faster or cut the range of motion, but I do feel that this gets me the most bang for my buck in my training, also known as the best stimulus to fatigue ratio. So we're hitting the muscle with a powerful stimulus while reducing fatigue as much as possible so I can recover for the next session. And fatigue isn't terrible. Fatigue is going to be a necessary component of any good leg day, but I could just go ahead and load this machine to the gills and cut my range of motion, but that's going to put a ton of fatigue throughout my central nervous system, which makes recovery harder. Depending on your training split, that might be okay, but because I hit legs multiple times in 1 week, that is why I'm working to manage the fatigue the way I'm doing it, and that's why I train this way. We got to think long term here, guys. This isn't just about one session. This is about piecing multiple sessions together over the long term to get the best results possible. So think long term, and I think you all are going to get the best results possible here. Moving it right along into the next leg day session. Here I am at my preferred gym, which is MEI in Indianapolis, and I'm working to start off by doing some calf training. I think I just didn't record my calf movements in the other leg day, but I always start off with calves because it's a lagging muscle group for me. So I'm focusing on calves because, one, I need to bring them up, and you'll see that I don't use a lot of weight. I focus on a deep stretch, and I really control the lowering portion of this range of motion and pausing in the bottom of the reps as well. Also, you get a little bit of range of motion, blood flow, through your ankle joints, and that helps me with my ankle dorsiflexion, which is just a way of saying I can get into a deep squat easier after hitting calves because my ankles are a little bit more warmed up. These are things that you rarely ever think about, but they stack up and contribute to a good leg day. And then this is the actual machine that I prefer doing abductions on, the Panada machine, and it's kind of more built for standing abductions, whereas the other machine, I'm definitely not using it as it's intended. But I'm a huge fan of this machine. It feels great to help me hit the glutes and just kind of warm up for future movement patterns. So huge fan of this machine, and I think you should all try that out as you're working your next program. Maybe you're starting a new program, wanting some new inspiration of how you can structure your exercise order. yeah, try this out, hit those supporting muscle groups first, and I think you'll have a good session. And as we wrap up this set, you'll see, once again, approaching failure, reps are slowing down, starting to get a little grindy. These aren't ones that I'll particularly try to go to failure on. But what an angle here. I have a close-up view of me doing some seated hamstring curls. I think the gym was a little busy, so my apologies for the poor angle here, but same premise. I think this is actually going to be a very similar leg day, just at a better gym. So the gym that you guys go to and the equipment that you have available, it is going to matter. Definitely take that into consideration as you're choosing your gym. Maybe the gym that is $10 more a month, maybe it stinks to pay that extra fee, but if you're going to get markedly better equipment like I have here at MEI versus Tipton Lakes Athletic Club, pay that extra $10 a month, guys. I promise you're going to have better sessions. It's going to translate to better results. So seated hamstring curls here, pretty much talked about that, but once again, wanted to show you what it is. Another thing that I did not record in the first leg day session was I also like hitting abs earlier on in the session. This is the Atlantis kind of knee raise machine, and I'm a big fan of this machine. Once again, so I can activate my core and have that core activation for when I brace later on the heavier compound movements. But it also helps me warm up some of my hip flexor musculature, which will help later in the session as I'm squatting. So try a hanging knee raise, or if you have this machine, try this machine. You can do a captain's chair lift, leg lift. I'm a huge fan of hitting abs, especially those knee and leg lift movements before squats. And this is what we call a proper leg extension. Unlike the Cybex machine in the first session that you saw, this Prime machine, it allows me to load the movement in the stretched portion of the range of motion. And it also allows you to just get a deeper stretch. Like I can actually feel my quads ripping apart in that deep range of motion aspect. So a far superior machine. And if you load it correctly, where I have most of the load in the stretched position, not all of it, you'll see I have a 25 and a 10 in the middle and end portion of the ranges of motion. I don't think you want tension to completely drop off after you've left that beginning portion, but it makes a huge difference. And then we're moving right along to my main movement in this session, which is the linear Atlantis hack squat. I love this Atlantis hack squat, guys. It can do both hack squats and the linear hack squat as you adjust the back pad. And man, let me tell you what, absolutely fire machine. You can get a huge range of motion, deep stretch on the quads. The machine itself is so smooth. I feel like no joint connective tissue strain as I'm really grinding hard on these reps. And you'll see, guys, I do deep range of motion, controlling it on the way down. I don't fully lock out as I approach the top, just kind of a soft lockout and then straight back down into the movement. And that's why I think can help you apply a lot of stimulus to the muscle and really, really push yourself hard. You'll see I'm actually doing a myo-rep match set. So this was my second set. The first set, I set a target rep. So maybe I hit let's say just for example, 16 reps in that first set. In the second set, I have to match 16 reps, but I'll break that down into rest pause. So maybe I hit 13 reps, I rest for a bit, and then I finish off the set with the additional 3 reps. This is a great way to get the most out of your time in the gym because we're approaching failure multiple times. Those approaches to failure are really what drive hypertrophy. So I take a little 15-second break, and then we get right back into the set. We're grinding once again, close to failure. You'll see these reps feel painful. The rep speed is slowing down, and I think this is a great way to really drive results, really use an intensity technique that has a lot of bang for your buck. So try out rest pause or myo-rep match. It's going to be huge for your training. And moving it right along, next we have the belt squat RDL. I'm a huge fan of this movement. It's one of my favorite hinge patterns. It always feels like I get a great stimulus and amazing DOMs from this movement. I'll basically run this when I'm in a calorie deficit, and I'll run a barbell RDL when I'm in a calorie surplus. And I just do that because I think the machine provides a little bit more support, a little bit less fatiguing than the barbell variation. What I'm doing here is focusing on pushing my hips back as if my butt crack is reaching the corner of the wall and the ceiling behind me. I'm keeping a neutral spine. We're not letting that lower back round wrap, only going as far as I can feel a deep hamstring stretch. For me, that's right below my knee. And in this session, the king of all glute movements here, the Rogers split squat. You'll see I have one of the roller pads from Atlantis. You can use a roller pad when you're doing split squats. It just feels a little bit better than using a bench, but a bench also works great. And this machine is like a Bulgarian split squat on steroids because I can load the range of the motion in a very challenging position by putting those plates at the top peg. I'm getting a deep stretch. I have ultimate stability from the machine. You thought Bulgarian split squats were bad. These are next level, and really only 1 or 2 sets is all I need to get a powerful stimulus to my glutes. I always get DOMs for days to come off of just doing 1 to 2 sets. So if you have a setup like this, let it run. Just think about sitting back into your glute and driving with that front foot, trying not to push with the back foot to cheat it, and your glutes will thank you later. And rounding out this session, I have the Atlantis leg press machine. And I wanted to include another video of me doing leg press because this machine is just so much superior to the Cybex that I was using earlier. The angle that the sled travels on is much better than most commercial gym leg presses. So try to get on a machine like this or the Nebula or the Rogue leg press if you can. I still do use a pad below my back and my butt so my lower back doesn't round too much, but you'll see same deal with all my leg training. Controlling it in that deep stretch, part of the range of motion, real brief pause, and then just driving with my quads and trying not to let my glutes take over too much. Get nice and deep so we can grow these quads. And this is what it's all about. We're taking it close to failure, not absolute failure, not locking out the knees so we can keep constant tension. But I don't think locking out the knees necessarily hurts. And to round off this session, I'm just using some variation, hitting the Atlantis leg extension. A real quick aside, this isn't my favorite leg extension because you can't get as deep of a stretch as the Prime. So I'm using one of the barbell hip thrust pads under my knees, and this is a great workaround if you guys have a similar kind of constraint with your leg extension. You can add something to make that stretch a little deeper. Alternatively, you could lean back as far as possible on the machine, but that's not super comfortable to me. This machine actually also is not the most advantageous because most of the tension is towards the lockout of the rep when your legs are extended, which is fine for variation, but by the science literature, most of hypertrophy happens when the muscle is stretched. So when you're down at the bottom of that range of motion. Regardless, we get to work in, feel the burn, and build up some metabolite because that burn is actually a big driver because that burn is actually a driver of hypertrophy. So lean into it. It's going to be tough, especially when you position a leg extension at the end of a workout. But this allows you to get some directed stimulus towards the muscle group that you need to bring up, which, as you know, in my example, is my quads. So go until you barely can anymore and rinse and repeat. Thank you all so much for sticking with me. If you made it this far in the video, you're a real one. I'm headed home from work right now in the car setup, but just wanted to leave you with a few closing thoughts to get the most out of your leg training. I think frequency, it's going to be the big one. Make sure if you're trying to gain muscle, you're hitting your legs multiple times a week, giving honest effort, training hard, close to failure, and eating food because you're going to need to recover. But with all that being said, guys, I hope you picked up a thing or two from my technique cues, from my rationale of how I structure these workouts. I appreciate y'all. And if you wouldn't mind hitting the video with a like, commenting for the algorithm, sharing it around, subscribing to the channel. I'm trying to grow this channel just to make it a good place for people to come and reference practical, non-biased fitness takes. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm trying to be a good source for people to follow. That being said, if you need a consultation, if you need coaching, feel free. Check the link down below for my intake form, whether it's just a one-off, we're talking through your goals and how we can get you there, or if you want to be one of my clients, I am taking clients and would love to have you on the roster. So until next time, guys, I'll catch you soon.